Here is the drunk professor's take on the Joe Rogan and Thaddeus Russell interview. Let's listen.
Peterson. He thinks that all the stuff in college campuses that's crazy is because of postmodernism, and he doesn't understand postmodernism.
So let's listen into Thaddeus Russell, the resident expert on postmodernism, because he's read Michael Foucault a few times.
What's going on in college campuses is people making all sorts of truth claims about things like race and gender, right? I'm black, therefore I will always be this, that, and the other thing. You're white, therefore you are this, that, and the other thing no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. That is actually old, modernist, scientific racist thinking. That's what these old racist, geneticists, eugenicists thought back in the day.
First, there's not a single biologist who makes a claim that because you're black or you're white, you're going to be doing this, that, or something.
It's amazing. Again, SJWs are actually really, really conservative and ultimately racist.
As far as Russell is concerned, anybody who doesn't buy into gender ideology is essentially racist, just so you know.
The central argument that was made by Foucault and postmodernists was that none of these things are biologically determined, that there is no natural essence to anything.
In other words, age is not biologically determined. So when you see your grandma, just know that that's a social construct. She's not 70 or 80. She's pretending to be that. She can be 10. It's society that's stopping her from being 10.
Murdering grandmother.
That everything is a social construct, which means that we now are free to choose our own destiny as individuals.
I knew there was a reason why society excluded this guy from the NBA.
I'm Tyrion Lannister.
Prior to that, prior to the 1960s and 70s, it was the dominant belief that if you were born a woman, you were going to be a wife and a mother. And if you weren't, you were doing something unnatural, right?
This is a total crock of shit. He's pretending that there were no women working before 1950. A fact of the matter is there was a higher proportion of American women who held high-level occupations in the early 20th century. We're talking about early 1900s compared to the mid-20th century. A lot of this has got to do with some biology, actually, and the biology in this case with the age of first marriage and childbearing.
That if you were black, you could never be the head of a business or the president, right? You could never do math, whatever. If you were white, you should do all those things, right? Everybody's destiny was determined at birth. And everyone believed that. Most people believed that.
So according to this logic, slavery and doing chores at home are just two sides of the same coin.
Bold.
Okay.
So postmodernists came along and said, guess what? You know what we found looking at history? We found just what I said. I just gave you the whole postmodern argument right there. We looked at history and we saw, first of all, that all these categories have changed over time, which tells us that they're just inventions. They're just inventions.
So because switchboard operator or milkman are outdated titles, I guess male and female are also just outdated under the same argument. That's like saying because Pluto got demoted from planet status, the moon just might as well just be a social construct.
And second of all, they have served the purposes of ruling elites because they get to put people in their boxes.
If categorization is inherently oppressive, does this mean that the periodic table is simply a tool of chemical tyranny?
Oh, those people over there, those are black. Therefore, they should be our slaves. So it's okay for us to have them as slaves. Those women over there, we don't want them, working for NASA. So we will have a rule against women working for NASA.
If all categories are just power structure, then isn't the claim that all categories are power structures also a power move? Should I be suspicious of postmodernism itself as an elite power play? Because if you follow this dude's logic, the only thing truly constructed here is this guy's argument.
So postmodernists said, none of this is biological, none of this is inevitable. You are now free to do what you want as an individual. It was a liberating moment. It has become the dominant way of thinking in academia. And I have to say, in my view, it is the supreme achievement of academics.
The greatest achievement of academia in 30 years, then, is proving that academia itself is meaningless. That's like the Joker running Gotham and declaring that the biggest success of crime is proving that laws don't matter. Bravo, Professor. Bravo.
And as you see, Gotham is burning.
That's it?
That's it. But it's huge. Huge. So if you think about it, look how the world has changed, and particularly in the United States since then, right?
Ah, yes. Postmodernism freed black people and women. The Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, and the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote in 1920. All of this long before postmodernism slithered out of the faculty lounge.
We no longer generally have those ideas, or at least we don't operate as such. So black people are allowed, mostly, into places they weren't before. Women are allowed very much so into places they weren't allowed.
He's mixing apples and oranges again. Yes, race and occupation are socially constructed to an extent. You can make laws that allow black people into universities or women into boardrooms. And biology isn't a suggestion. No matter how inclusive the NFL gets, a 5'3" 120-pound guy isn't making the roster. And no Supreme Court ruling is putting me in the WNBA.
Now, the problem is that these social justice warriors, so-called, on campuses, have used some of that language and taken a shit on it. So the trans movement, for instance, right, that started from postmodernism. That whole idea, right, is that, you know, if you were born with a penis, you're a man, and you should do X, Y, and Z with your life, right? The trans movement needed postmodernism to make that intervention and say, no, that's not true, right? You can actually be a woman because woman is an invention. It's a social construct. What much of the trans movement now is doing, which makes me so sad, is that they're saying that I am biologically, essentially, naturally, you know, in my core, a woman. No, no one is. No one is. You can't, the whole point of this movement used to be that you get to choose your gender or choose not to be a gender. You get to move around. Your destiny is not determined for you. What a lot of the trans movement now is doing is a good word, reifying. They're making these ideas, these abstractions real again. They're making these claims that are similar to Sam Harris's claims and to old racist claims and to old sexist claims that if you're born a particular way biologically, this is who you are. Right? Because you've heard a lot of trans people say this, right? I was born a woman. That's what they often say. What I'm saying is no one was born anything.
See, this shows you how weak the postmodern concept really is. Because this idea of social constructionism only works when it comes to gender. When it's anything else, any other so-called clearly biological trait like height, weight, race, any of these things, other than what he's trying to muddy the waters with, which is race-based occupational choice, or that's like saying gender-based clothing. Of course, anybody, even a woman, can dress up in any clothing that they want. That's a socially constructed reality. However, gender in and of itself, biology in and of itself, height in and of itself, is not a social construction, no matter how many different ways you look at it.
You're born a man?
No.
What are you born? Why are you a man?
For all sorts of reasons.
For all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
None of them being
Well, we
biological.
just decided.
None of them being the XY chromosome. None of them being you have testicles. None of them being you have a penis. None of them being the fact that you generally gravitate towards male activities like boxing, kickboxing, aggressive things.
We just went through this whole thing.
No, you didn't.
Yoel Romero and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but you.
Why are they both men?
But you.
Yeah.
You're a man.
Yeah.
You can see here Joe Rogan trying his best to reason with this guy. Because Rogan recognizes that this argument from Thaddeus is ridiculous. But note how Thaddeus is going to start going to the extremes and pulling out edge cases to try to make a major argument.
Yeah.
You're a man.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about the broad spectrum of masculine behavior. We're talking about no one is born a man. You're not born a man. I'm not born a man.
I'm saying that no. I think
we're getting silly.
Hold on here. I think it's the category of man becomes meaningless.
Does it?
Yeah, we just did this, man.
No, we didn't. We definitely didn't do
Yoel
this.
Romero and Andy Dick are both
it's a broad category. The lines get blurry at the ends of the spectrum, and I think they cross over. The male-female lines do cross over when you get to that Kenyan runner and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's so broad that it becomes, to me, pretty damn meaningless.
See, the argument here is just because some men are feminine and some women are more masculine, the whole concept of male and female, according to Thaddeus, is meaningless. That's like saying because some people are short and some are tall, height doesn't exist. Or because some people are colorblind, colors are a myth. This is how the rest of his arguments go. So I'm going to stop over here. At the end of the day, Thaddeus' entire argument is just postmodern wordplay, trying to blur the lines between biology, race, and social norms, things that are fundamentally different. Clothing, occupational choices, and social expectations. Those evolve. Biology, not so much. Just because we've redefined job roles or fashion trends doesn't mean male and female are up for debate. No one's disputing that some men are more feminine or that some women are more masculine, but that doesn't erase biological sex any more than a few short basketball players erase the reality of height. And here's the kicker. These same postmodernists who deny biology still rely on it every time they take medicine, every time they visit the doctor. No amount of philosophy is going to override the simple truth that biology wins every time. Anyways, this has been The Drunken Professor, where we take bad ideas, shake them up, and watch them collapse under their own contradictions. If you like this, hit like, subscribe, and let's keep exposing the nonsense that is today's social sciences, one sip at a time.